Justin Baldoni is fighting back against the New York Times motion to dismiss.
Have you heard about what's happening with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni?
Anyway, there's breaking news here for the Lively versus Baldoni case.
Blake Lively is handed a loss by the judge. The New York Times is trying every which way to get out of the case.
That is Brandon Sklenar, and repeatedly he had come out in defense of zero-time Oscar-nominated actress Blake.
All right, so everything in the world is just ridiculous. It's pointedly ridiculous, I would say. I mean,
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are caught in a legal storm as their battle with Justin Baldoni takes a dramatic and unexpected turn. With shocking subpoenas, shifting alliances, and explosive accusations, this Hollywood feud is reaching a whole new level. As Baldoni pushes back against media narratives and legal tactics, the stakes continue to rise. The big question remains: who will come out on top in this high-stakes showdown? Stay tuned as the drama unfolds.
Blake Lively is handed a loss by the judge. The New York Times is trying every which way to get out of the case. Lively is also hiring a former CIA alum, and a co-star is speaking out. A lot of updates we got to get to when it comes to the ongoing legal saga of Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively.
Lively and Ryan Reynolds are reportedly caught in a growing legal storm as their battle with Justin Baldoni intensifies. Message. What started with Lively's accusations against Baldoni and his production company, Wayfarer Studios, has now escalated into a high-stakes showdown. With defamation claims, media scrutiny, and allegations of coordinated attacks, the case is becoming more complex by the day.
The New York Times has now moved to dismiss Justin Baldoni's defamation lawsuit, which we heard before. To be fair, this is a tough one for Justin to win. It genuinely is. Journalists have more of a freedom of speech and things that are protected, so this is going to be an uphill battle. Now they've moved to dismiss it, as they've said here. This is back before we get to Justin's more recent response, which we're going to talk about. They filed this on the motion in New York, defending its reporting, arguing that allegedly defamatory statements Baldoni has taken issue with are true and fair characterizations of the events that unfolded on the movie set. They're saying it's all true what Justin did. What do you think? Throughout their blunderbuss complaint, the Wayfarer parties seek to drag the Times into their larger feud with Lively. The only thing the Times is, in fact, alleged to have done is engage in news gathering and publishing an article and video about the Wayfarer Lively dispute. You helped her defame him, and you lied about it. That's at least going to be what the issue is. If you got all this intel before everybody else, well, then you're helping her retaliate, and that's questionable. You couldn't have done all that in a day. You didn't. Clearly, the metadata.
As tensions escalate, Baldoni is fighting back against Lively and Reynolds, refusing to back down. Meanwhile, the New York Times is standing firm, ensuring their narrative does not go unchallenged.
The letter argues that the Times hasn't demonstrated good cause for a stay, as it hasn't proven discovery would be overly burdensome. Wayfarer would be prejudiced by any delay, and they contend that the motion to dismiss is unlikely to resolve the entire case, since it involves choice of law issues to both parties. Moreover, the letter asserts that the Times will remain a key witness regardless of the motion's outcome, and the Wayfarer parties plan to amend their pleadings. Wayfarer counsel urges the court to deny the Times' stay request, or at least allow document discovery to proceed. So basically, what they're saying is that they want the receipts. Regardless of what happens with this New York Times case, which is going to be hard, they still, it shouldn't be dismissed because we still need to prove what the receipts are. Did you get this early? What did she tell you? All this stuff is helpful to the case. So we can't dismiss it until we discover all that. And I do think they have enough cause now with the metadata and other things to request that. So the New York Times is saying the discovery is burdensome. Wayfarer's like, no, we haven't even asked for that yet. Based on what happened with Blake's subpoenas, records, it'll be very tailored, so therefore not burdensome. No matter what, they're still in this. They will be called as witnesses. Basically, you can run, but you can't hide. So he is fighting that back. He's keeping it realistic, which I do appreciate, and we'll see how this all nets out.
Baldoni's legal team is pushing back against the New York Times' request to pause discovery while message its motion to dismiss is under review. They argue that the Times has not presented a strong justification for the delay and insist that the litigation should proceed as planned.
But it's not likely they're going to win this. And so it's just, it's a nice argument here. He's arguing against the discovery stay, but he's also putting a little hint into the court. Oh, by the way, this 12b6 motion the New York Times filed to have my client's lawsuit thrown out without having a jury hear this case, they're wrong. We're going to win this. And
it's the trailer, right? Since this is all about a movie, they're giving the judge a trailer for what's coming in terms of the argument on the motion to dismiss. So the second argument that Baldoni asserts against the Times is that the time frame for conducting discovery is limited. So this is not going to be burdensome or unfairly prejudicial to the Times because the court has already said that all factual discovery must be completed by August 15, 2025, which for everybody who's not a lawyer out there, that is lightning fast in the legal world. I mean, even having a trial date set for next March, I know it sounds like a long time to non-lawyers, but that is just lightning fast in the legal world. And so trying to complete all your discovery by August is very fast. And if the court were to put a stay on any discovery against the Times, it would ruin that time schedule.
Turning point in the case centers on the New York Times coverage of Lively's claims. Baldoni's legal team argues that the publication went beyond neutral reporting, shaping the narrative in a way that portrayed him as the mastermind behind a smear campaign.
Given the choice of law analysis the court must undertake to decide the dismissal motion, the court should decline to stay discovery for this reason alone. Even if New York law were determined to apply to the defamation claim, the court cannot determine as a matter of law that the state's fair report privilege applies because it is for the jury to decide if the context in which the statements are made makes it impossible for the ordinary viewer or reader to determine whether the publication was reported on a judicial proceeding. Although the Times argues that its article merely reports Blake Lively's California Civil Rights Department complaint against Justin Baldoni and others, and thus purportedly is absolutely protected under New York's fair report privilege, the Times dismissal motion acknowledges that the article went beyond reporting. Here, the article lays out in great detail the factual basis for its conclusion that plaintiffs engaged in a smear campaign against Lively. The amended complaint thoroughly alleges why the article is not a substantially accurate summary of the administrative complaint.
Though adding to the controversy is the question of message, how journalist Megan T. allegedly obtained thousands of pages of private messages and emails related to Baldoni. Legal experts have raised concerns about whether a valid lawsuit was even in place when the subpoena was issued, as subpoenas can only be granted in active cases.
Justin Baldoni is confident in his motion fight with New York Times, so says Albertson and Davidson LLP. They were on my channel last week, and I'll be back on their channel, I think, this week. Well, here is the moment where the guys, Stuart Albertson and Keith Davidson, discuss how the hell did the New York Times get a subpoena that included all those text messages? And by asking this question, I think they're implying that there is definitely more shifty work going on.
Keith, there's this issue that's just troubling both of us, and that is, how did Megan Twohey get all these thousands of pages of text messages and emails and other things via a subpoena? We're perplexed by this, and maybe somebody has the answer for us. What's the issue there?
Yeah, so here's the issue. This has always kind of been bothering me in the back of my mind, is that Megan Twohey says in her article that Blake Lively obtained all of these text messages through subpoena. Okay, what's subpoena? You can only issue a subpoena if you have an open legal case. So you have to have a valid legal case. I can't just issue a subpoena to, the New York Times.
And my question, and they obviously know a lot more than I do, my question when watching this was, is there some way where Megan Twohey coordinates with Blake Lively where they say, we want to gather it all, but we need to do it through some legal situation to verify everything? But I guess that's not the case. So yeah, finding out what this subpoena was would be very interesting, because without the subpoena, I mean, it's clear that Blake Lively just dumped all of this info to the New York Times, right?
Meanwhile, Lively's legal team faced a setback when the judge denied their broad subpoenas requesting call and text records from major cellular providers. The court ruled that the requests were overly intrusive and disproportionate.
Anyways, I'll take you through the judge's ruling because it is actually a kind of a split ruling, obviously very much in the favor of Justin Baldoni, but I'll tell you this so that you know what happens next. So Judge Lehman writes, Wayfarer Studios, Justin Baldoni, and Jamie Heath moved to quash the subpoenas issued to their cellular providers AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile For the reasons following, the motion is granted in part and denied in part. Lively served the subpoenas on February 12, 2025. The subpoenas requested all documents concerning ingoing and outgoing calls or text messages related to telephone numbers belonging to Wayfarer parties and related individuals within the time period of December 1st, 2022 to the present, included but not limited to call logs, text logs, data logs, and cell site location information. She wants to know even where you were when you sent the text to your doctor about the rash on your child's buttocks. Like, that's what they essentially were asking for, okay? Now, the telephone numbers of the Wayfarer parties and related individuals are identified in the subpoenas. Then they say that what happens next was that on February 14th, the Wayfarer parties obviously came back and said no, they moved to squash it. And they said because what you're asking for is, quote, overly broad and invasive.